Hey, what's up again, everybody? It's Robert184, 2 R's to B's from GundamReviews.net, and episode 26, the halfway point, I suppose, of Gundam Age, has aired. It's action-packed with all sorts of heartbreak and mobile suit action in between, so let's get straight to the review. For Mobile Suit of the Week, it's an absolute shame that this guy doesn't have a high grade. I'm talking about the Chronos Dezel's second mobile suit, well after the Zetus in the first generation. And you can see that he was back to his old trips here, including controlling X-Rounders with his mind and having them do his bidding in the middle of the battle. I've never seen a mobile suit, well, I mean, I've seen it used very, very well before, but the way he was able to use every weapon that he has, and there's a lot of weapons built into this one, especially after its upgrade a few episodes ago, it's the kind of thing that you want to see a high-grade Bacto hybrid with all of its weapons brought to bear because it was used very, very effectively, as you'll hear. But no, I suppose Mobile Suit of the Week has to go to the double bullet because Asum Asano had reason to wake up and become the pilot that he should be, even despite the fact that he isn't an X-Rounder. He's able to use this, and it's the kind of thing where I lamented in the review that I wish it had more effect parts, because when you saw the way the V2 used its Wings of Light and the way the Destiny Gundam has done the same, and even Fuunsaiki at the end of G Gundam, but I'm talking about the way he uses his weapons and the large pink effect parts that can come out of these shoulder holsters just to cut through everything in between. He had all the reason because he was enraged to just cut loose, and the double bullet was very, very cool when it did it. The other honorable mention goes to the Flat, which headed out with an all-new backpack, which I look forward to seeing more of next week. For Character of the Week, I thought Zeehart actually had a pretty good episode. He did a very good job leading the Vegan forces into battle, and you can see that he's willing to make the tough decisions as he dealt with his insubordinate brother Dezel. Another honorable mention has to go to Supreme Commander Flit Asano, where despite the fact that there was a tragedy moments earlier, when everybody else is in tears, including himself because of a flashback, he's able to pull it all together and issue the order to, yes, because it's Gundam, to fire the giant colony/mirror/diva laser. But I think for anybody who's seen the episode, there can be no doubt as to who the main character, the Character of the Week, has to be. And I'm talking about Wolf Eniako, who was fantastic in the first generation. I really like the work that he did with Flit, first as a rival and then as a friend and a cool older senpai who's always there to take care of him. And his taking care of Flit also continued even when one becomes a general and then he's off, just leading the son and his battle group. You can see from the very beginning with the speech that he gave before they headed out into battle how much he cares for his troops. The number of times that he's gotten Asum out of trouble, allowed him to get food in prison after he's been locked up for the 50th time for disobeying orders, and the way that he's able to serve in that fatherly role that Flit is just unable to because of his role as commander. Wolf was a fantastic addition to this show for the last 26 episodes, which is why today's episode was particularly tragic. We're in a great action scene. We see that Dezel has controlled two of the Zetuses and their X-Rounders to come and grab the double bullet, and Wolf is able to shoot them both down and rush in to save Asum in the Age 2. And with the G-Bouncer shooting through and saving the Age 2 though, you can just imagine that its exposed back is going to make for easy pickings for a madman and someone who's never afraid to kill. I'm talking about Dezel Galette. And with the G-Bouncer horribly damaged, we're not going to have a burning moment from 0083 where he's just got to reveal what's inside the envelope, but instead he's actually going to have time to continue the conversation that he's been having with Asum from the beginning. The same conversation that he gave the team, I want you all to come back alive. Sadly, he's the one who isn't going to be. But in the end, he tells Asum to do what we've all been wanting him to do for the last few episodes, which is get over the fact that he's not an X-Rounder and to become just the best him that he can be. And that means a super pilot in this case. And in the end, you can tell that Wolf's words took great effect because even though Flit wasn't able to finish off Dezel once and for all, Asum in the Age 2 double bullet is able to get rid of the main antagonist, I suppose, for the last 26 episodes, and it's just going to set up Asum to be the kind of warrior that he has to be to take on Zeehart. I always figured it would have been Zeehart that was going to kill Wolf and give him that. This way we're not getting Dezel or Flit closure at all whatsoever. But sadly, Wolf's death seemed to have been, the writing seems to have been on the wall, and I'm glad that he had the time to hopefully turn Asum into the kind of pilot that we all want him to be for the rest of this series. And what was my favorite scene of the episode? Well, it was a quiet one at the beginning, where in the hangar, after Wolf had already given his speech, Asum goes up to thank him for all the words because he knows that he was talking to him, and all we get from Wolf is just a knock on the chest, and nothing needs to be said. He just sends Asum off on his way before we're going to be getting the big speech at the end, but that's a moment between these two that I'm sure Asum is never going to forget for the rest of this second generation and probably into the third. Overall, I thought this was a fantastic episode with great action from beginning to end. I didn't go into this episode expecting this to be the all-out firefight that it was going to be. Fleet-on-fleet action with super weapons, super shields, and it seems like a spy within the Federation ranks. And I wonder if it's going to be Mula Flaga, whose voice I never ever get tired of hearing, especially issuing orders to, as I've said before, fire the laser. However, it's going to be Wolf's death that, like Lock-On, is going to affect the most people. And you can see the effect that it had on the whole bridge crew and how well respected he was on the Diva. I still remember the first episode when he showed up and he was just a punk. And I wonder if we're ever going to even be seeing anything as to what happened with his relationship with Malays and things like that. You can certainly see that Asum is going to have to step it up the way Setsuna did after Lock-On's death, in terms of being probably the leader now of the Divas and their mobile suit crew. But overall, Wolf had his time. He had 3 mobile suits. I always wondered if he'd be one of the first people in Gundam to get 6 if he had 2 per generation. With Cold Sleep, you'd think that it might have actually been possible, but instead the sacrifice was needing to be made, and especially compared to the one where we actually had Grudek die off a few episodes and that was very quickly forgotten, I wonder if we're actually going to get some proper follow-up in the episodes to come, or whether this is just going to be a Lock-On shows up as a ghost and all of a sudden tells Setsuna to change as he didn't change, and whether Asum's going to be hearing that and repeating the word super pilot over and over again. Anyway, everybody, why don't you let me know what you thought of this review and the episode, of course, and Wolf's sad departure from the show. I would have liked to have seen a lot more. You wonder if he would have been too old for the 3rd generation. But anyway, he left a lot of good memories, and I hope that you enjoyed it along the way. Anyway, everybody, we'll see you next week, episode 27. It's going to be hard to top this one. Let's see what they can do. Thanks for watching.